Hi, I'm Scott Hanselman. This is another episode of Hanselminutes. Today I have the extreme pleasure of chatting with Noel Berry. He's the co-creator of Celeste and works at Extremely OK Games. How's it going?
Good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out. I saw your blog post called Making Video Games in 2025, and you have been making video games for like more than 2 decades now?
Yeah, rough. Since I've been making games since I was a kid, so I started like 11, 12 and kind of just kept doing it.
Mm-hmm. How many games got made before Celeste, before the game that kind of quote unquote popped?
Oh man, a lot, like dozens of games. If you can count unfinished games, probably like 100 or something. But in terms of just like things that I would consider kind of finished, probably a few dozen.
Is that bad to not finish a game? Because there are people, there's perfectionism, not finishing something, and then there's like, yeah, this isn't an idea worth finishing, not finishing something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to gear more towards finishing stuff now, because I'm tired of not finishing stuff. But I do find it very hard to actually finish things. I think that's definitely one of the hard. Like it's easy to kind of start making stuff, but it's really hard to finish stuff. I'm trying to. That's like a lifelong skill of trying to get better at that, and I'm not there yet, but working towards it.
So I've done like all the Metroids, I've done all the Castlevanias, I'm doing Silk Song, I've done Celeste, and I've also playing Elden Ring. So is there like a punishing Metroidvania? Like is Souls-like Metroidvania? It's like people like to say rogue-like, but it's more than that. It's like pain is pleasure. When did that become a 2D thing? And where's Celeste's role in that? Like, do you blame yourself for starting this process?
I don't think no. I think we were definitely a moment in the timeline of that. But yeah, no, I mean, I think that goes all the way back. Even like, Mario games, like old Mario has a little bit of that element to it for sure. So I think we're just like a data point in the timeline of that stuff.
Sometimes people, I won't name names, but there's like just famous video game people make a thing. It becomes the thing. They become known for the thing, and then you basically hit a home run. So then people expect that you're going to hit home runs on the regular.
Yeah.
Or you're going to come out with Home Run 2, like Axiom Verge 2 or whatever 2. And then that's the thing. And then for the rest of your life, you're going to be like ABBA. You're going to be playing Dancing Queen at like state fairs because you did a thing. After the success of your kind of main game early on, did you get a sense of like, okay, I hit a home run. Now I'm screwed? Or did that just make you feel like, oh, I can make more delightful things?
A bit of both, honestly. It felt like that a lot. And I think when it first came out and was really successful, we definitely wanted to intentionally try to make something very different afterwards because we didn't want to have that. Yeah, we didn't want to, make Celeste 2 or just do another thing like that. We wanted to explore other options and other things, still in like a platformer genre because that's what we like making, but definitely something different, which didn't end up working out this time, but we're still kind of exploring those options and different things. But yeah, I think in general, we've always been more excited about trying to do different stuff, not even to differentiate ourselves because we don't want to get tied down to Celeste, but mostly just because in terms of like what we find exciting as like artists and creative people and stuff, it's just, we don't want to make the same game again. And so, yeah, there's definitely been a drive to try to do other stuff. I could see, sometime in the future being like, oh, maybe it'd be fun to revisit parts of this again or something. But yeah, still even, 7 years on, I still feel like we're excited about like trying new things and exploring new stuff.
Did moving from making hundreds of games, unfinished or not, to making a game with the goal of paying the rent involve a creative shift? Because like you're describing a focus on being independent, on not using commercial game engines, on doing your own thing, but there's also rent.
Yes, I think that there was a shift there. I mean, I was like, before Celeste, I was still making money from games, but it was like smaller Flash stuff. So it wasn't really paying rent. I was doing, other contract work at the time, web design, web development, stuff like that. I used to make a lot of the websites for Devolver Digital. So yeah, there was definitely a transition from kind of doing this as like a smaller games for fun and into like commercial projects. And yeah, there's definitely like, I'm trying to think about how to like
how does it suck the joy out of it? Because I had a friend who made jewelry and I was like, oh, we should do a show. And we put on a show for her jewelry and she said it sucked the joy out of it.
Yeah, I think that happens a little bit. I think especially like we're in a fortunate position where Celeste did well enough that I feel like we're allowed to explore and kind of go at our own pace and try to make fun stuff. without the pressure of like we have to like have this timeline, it has to be done, otherwise we need to pay rent. So we're in a fortunate position in that regard, but it still feels like, yeah, as soon as there's it definitely shifts your thinking about how you're working on stuff, because instead of it being like I'm making a thing and what's fun, it's like you have all these like, well, is it too hard, is it too easy, does it how does it, how will people talk about it, is do people like buying these games right now, is this genre viable, all these kind of things start playing, even if you don't really, if you're trying to avoid that stuff, even if you don't really care about that stuff, it definitely impacts things. I think for us, we're trying to avoid that stuff as much as possible and just make stuff that feels fun to us, because that's what's worked for us so far, is making stuff that we're excited about, and just not worrying so much, trying not to worry about the sort of like, oh, will this sell, which is a fortunate position to be in, but also I think ends up making stuff that is fun, or more interesting.
I know you can't speak for Team Cherry, but everyone's teasing them because Silk Song was like announced in 2019 and it just came out like last week. So let's think speculatively, like, what have they been doing for the last 6 years? Like, is there a thing where you have like a burst of energy and you're like, oh my goodness, this idea, this mechanism, this game loop is exciting. And then you're in the office 60 hours that week. And then maybe another week, there's 20 hours and you're just like, this is not happening.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going on. Like, were they literally working 2,000 hours a year for 6 solid years on this thing?
I don't think so. I mean, if they're anything like how we work, that stuff definitely goes in waves, where of inspiration and burnout, and I don't know, just like life, especially over 6 years. Like I think your life would just change, and things would happen, and there'd just be like moments of like we're getting so much done right now, and everything's flowing, and moments of just like, yeah, it's kind of stuck, or like we don't know exactly what to do. I definitely think that goes, that yeah, there's kind of like ebb and flows of those kind of things, and yeah, and what we're interested in working on moment to moment too. I have a hard time thinking about like working on something the same thing for 6 years. I definitely feel like creatively I get sidetracked, or sometimes I'll just work on other hobby stuff for a bit because I'm like, well, I'm kind of stuck on this thing. I'll work on sometimes more code related stuff rather than kind of creative, like game design creative stuff, and more just like code engineering problems that are fun, stuff like that.
Moving to like the tech and thinking about how games get made, you used engines like Game Maker for years. There's lots of like indie games with small frameworks like FNA and SDL. There's big engines like Unity, but you choose to get your pixels on the screen kind of on your own. Doesn't that like, isn't the whole point to like layer the tools so that the creativity is up here and you're not worried about the little details? Why are you a full stack game developer?
Like the biggest answer to that, or the main answer to that, is that I just find it fun. I like programming a lot.
Answer.
Yeah, I like programming a lot. I like creating things. I like the game design aspect of things and making the gameplay fun. But I also like engineering stuff. I like learning how things work. And that's been a very gradual shift for me over a long time, because like you said, I started in Game Maker. I did a lot of Flash, and I kind of slowly moved into more tech stuff as time went on. And I just found it fun. And so I'm at a point where I think I just enjoy knowing how my stuff gets on the screen. And I definitely don't get down to the very bare bones. I'm still using SDL. I'm not writing actual system calls. But I enjoy that level of it where I can kind of control it the way I want. And I think I'm very opinionated too. I like things being in my little way. And as soon as it's not my way, I get, annoyed, and I'm like, oh, why can't this be my way? And then I write my thing to do it my way.
And for context of folks that may not be familiar, SDL is Simple Direct Media Layer. It's a library that is higher than just putting a pixel on the screen, but still gives you low-level access to the keyboard and the mouse and basically everything that happens. Now, you do most of your work in C#, but I don't get the impression that you're like we love Microsoft and Windows is the way kind of a person. You do your work in Linux.
Yeah, I work on Linux. I wasn't. Linux is kind of more recent for me. I think I switched full time to Linux about 3 years ago. But no, I think C# mostly for me is just my favorite language, just in how it's designed. The .NET, framework and everything is just the most fluid for me for like making games. it has a really nice balance of like low level stuff where I can kind of control how memory is managed and different things. And when I need to, I can be like, oh, I can, make calls into DLLs and things like that really nicely. But then it has all these awesome, like intuitive, easy to use features that make it really smooth, especially for games like code routines, like eye enumerators, stuff like that, where you can kind of easily make cutscenes or enemy designs, things like that, where it's a bit higher level, but really smooth. And like as an example of that, I make games with people who don't always code a lot. Like my brother is working with me on a smaller project, and he went from no coding about a year ago to he codes entire enemies in C# because it's just like you can kind of get the idea of like, oh, he's not writing, structural stuff, but if it's like I want an enemy to move from here to here, he can go in and just edit the code to do that or add his own little functions because C# is there's not a lot of like foot guns like with C++ where you can you know allocate stuff like crazy and dangle a pointer and things explode. It's a lot safer than that. So it's this really nice middle ground of fast and kind of systemsy, but also intuitive and easy to work with on like a moment to moment.
So Liam is not a programmer, but he's programming. Is he saying to the enemy jump, or is he saying to the enemy move in this parabola? Like, where are the physics and where is Liam?
So the physics are he's like assigning velocity values and stuff like that. So it's kind of and usually often using eye enumerators. So our enemy behaviors usually use eye enumerators, which are you can kind of break up the logic into different pieces. So he'll be like, set the velocity to this value and then wait until they're on the ground, and then do this attack and then wait until that's over, and that kind of logic flow. But he'll do them entirely by himself now. Like for a while, it was mostly just him editing mine. Like, oh, I think this guy moves too slow or too fast or whatever. But now it's to the point where he'll just implement his own. He'll usually copy and paste an existing one and then just modify it to his liking.
That's awesome. So he's almost a business logic writer, and he's writing the business logic of the game.
Yeah, totally.
In C#. Hey friends, it's Scott here. I want to welcome our new sponsor, CodeRabbit. I was talking with Aravind from CodeRabbit recently, and I was pointing out that developers are using AI all the time for code generation, and sometimes that AI-generated code gets sloppy. Aravind, how does CodeRabbit tackle that problem?
Well, that's a great question, Scott. It is ironic to think about using AI to review AI-generated code, but actually it works really well. CodeRabbit brings AI code reviews to your own dev workflow. You can get line-by-line reviews, one-click fixes, and code-base-aware feedback on the PR right where you are. We integrate well with more than 20 plus code security and code quality tools, and provide your feedback right in the Git workflow.
So you can check this out for free, folks. You can go to coderabbit.ai. You get free AI code reviews directly in your IDE and the tools that you're already using. And you can ship faster while maintaining your flow state. So I encourage you to check out coderabbit.ai. Now, C# when I started in 2002 is different than when you were thinking about it in 2015 or 2025. Like, let's try to get into a little bit of spicy conversation here, because I want to actually have the leaders, not just of the .NET language and the .NET framework rather, but also Windows, to hear this podcast. So I might actually make them listen to this. How much of the work that you're doing and the work that the game community is doing with C# is in spite of Microsoft versus as a result of stuff Microsoft has done to make you all successful?
I think quite a lot of it. I mean, it's hard. It's hard for me as an outsider to like differentiate exactly which parts are what almost. But C#, the language, has been very integral to me making video games. Like .NET, how it works and where it's gone, especially in the last 5 years. I actually stopped using C# for a few years after Celeste came out, and then I came back to it because of things that have happened in the last few years, especially. So it's hard for me to totally separate exactly where things are. But yeah, like you said, I don't use Windows anymore. But I use Visual Studio Code. I use C#. I use .NET. Like even my website uses C# to compile the HTML and stuff like that. So I use C# for everything now. But I don't think it's because of. It's definitely not Windows. Yeah.
So XNA, though, is one of your favorite frameworks, and that was a big Windows thing for a while. Microsoft supported that. What is the status of that project now?
That's being deprecated for, I think, 12 years. But that was the shift for me from Flash to console games or desktop games. So I was making stuff in Flash, and then I wasn't using like Flash the actual like
Macromedia
editor.
Flash.
Macromedia Flash. I was using a thing called, I think it was Flash Develop, which is a very similar. It looked kind of like Visual Studio. You know, it had like, it was just a code window and you had a debugger and stuff, but it wasn't any of the Macromedia Flash drawing stuff. So I was making Flash games, like pixel art Flash games in Flash Develop, and to go from that AS3 language to C# XNA was very nice. It was a very gradual, like, oh, the complexity level here is a very nice step up from, you know, Flash calls to, oh, I have a sprite batcher and I draw stuff on the window. But now it's a desktop game and runs 1,000 times faster. And is so XNA was integral, I think, to me making desktop games for sure. And us in general, like Towerfall before that was also an XNA game. And I worked on a game that didn't come out for a long time called Skytorn, which was an XNA game. So that was very much like how I learned to make. And I don't even know. I don't know what I would have done if not for that at the time, because Flash
But
was,
what about Monogame's open source implementation of XNA? Like, because XNA is not supported, it still works. You know, it's not, Microsoft discontinued it, but there's people still talk about it. Like, there's literally threads on Reddit that are like, if XNA is dead, is it still good to start? From 12 years ago. And then people are like, no, you should still do it. You should use Monogame.
Yeah, I mean, I know people starting XNA games now, like in 2025, who are still using it, but then they're using Monogame or FNA, which are ports, ports or like, you know, continuations. So those are really awesome that they exist, and I think they added. I doubt people would still be saying like you should make an XNA game even in 2015 if it wasn't for Monogame, because they, you know, since Microsoft just discontinued it, that was the only way kind of forward in terms of like making sure it ran forever. I mean, the XNA version of Celeste is still on Windows, is still the XNA version. That is the main version of Celeste. But then, you know, we use FNA for Linux and Mac, and we use Monogame for consoles. So yeah, without Monogame and FNA, then XNA probably would have completely stopped in, you know, 100% in 2013, I guess.
So when you run build to build Celeste as an example, and you make n number of target executables, how many executables are there? And is it basically, are you just if-defing your way to glory?
So we're actually in the middle of reshaping a little bit of this just to keep the project, or keep it, you know, maintainable as we go. But yeah, historically, the way it is, there's a bunch of if-defs. It's not too bad. There's a bunch of if-defs for console stuff, but in general, like, the main game has very few if-defs. Kind of the launching point of it does. And yeah, honestly,
the gameplay loop is like reliable. You don't have situations like, oh, she jumps differently on Linux.
No, that stuff's all the same. And so I've been slowly like updating it to use like .NET 9 and modern FNA and stuff, because it's still like, at this moment, the version that you see everywhere is framework 4.7 point whatever.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's an interesting question. So why would you upgrade it if it works? Why, like, 9 has crazy perf improvements. Like, it might be 5 times faster. Yeah. But it's not like it needs to be. Like, how many frames a second do you need?
Yeah, you're right. It runs at 60 frames. There's a few reasons why. One is I would like it to be 64-bit, and doing that, I know like framework can do that too.
Yeah, and you'd get ARM for free as well.
Yeah, but mostly it's just that it's a longevity thing, I think. Like, I would like it to just run on the modern .NET. You're right. There's a lot of perf stuff that is really cool. I don't know how much of this I get into, but for consoles, for example, like original Celeste is ported. Basically, it uses a tool called Brute, which takes the C# IL and converts it to C++ and recompiles that. But now there is like with .NET AOT, which is the reason I came back to C# actually, because now there's AOT compiling. You can compile it natively to pretty much any platform you want, even platforms that don't support a just-in-time compiler. And so I'd like to long-term, you know, use that, because then we get the benefits of all modern performance stuff from .NET, and also have that working for all platforms. those are the main reasons. It's mostly just like I want to maintain the game for as long as we can, and I'd like to just use the versions of .NET that have just improved a lot. And there are a few things like we will sometimes, depending on stuff that happens, it'll like hit the 32-bit memory limit and die, and things like that I'd like to fix.
So if you sit down and you do a hello world today, okay, you're like, oh, hey, we're going to make a game. You want Linux, Mac, Switch, PS4, you want them all.
Yeah.
Do you use your own C# layer Foster on top of SDL? Is that your hello world?
Yeah, that's my hello world usually. And that's mostly just because SDL is awesome. But I just like it. I basically built my own sort of XNA on top of SDL. So SDL is like the thing that actually runs it cross-platform on everything and opens a window no matter what device you're on. But then I kind of have my own XNA that's just like my thing. It's very similar to XNA, honestly, in terms of the API design.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bit more like me, so it's a bit flavored to like what I like and things like that. But in general, it's basically like, oh, like I want .NET 9, I want C# 14. I can't remember what C#, but yeah, I want all these things. And I basically want XNA, but so this is my like little thing.
On your blog post that I'll put a link to in the show notes, Making Games in 2025, you've got this cool screenshot where you basically stop and inspect an object with reflection at runtime. There's like it's almost like F12 design tools in Chrome, except you're doing it in your app. Is that a you thing?
That's a me thing, yeah.
Yeah.
It's very simple in C#, right? Because I have all the game objects kind of in like it's just a list ultimately. But all the game objects are there, and I know they're bounding boxes, so I can click on it, and then if I click on it, I can just loop through recursively and just show stuff. And
presumably change it, I assume, if you wanted to in real time.
Yeah, you can just change them. And I just if I hit most primitive types, at that point you're just iteratively going through the different objects, and you can kind of see everything. And that's a really nice way to just be like, why is this thing's velocity not what or maybe its velocity is what it is, but it's not moving or something weird. And you can kind of, it's a nice way to, ultimately I'll go into the actual, debugger in C# if there's like deeper issues, but for just a kind of at a glance, like what's happening, it's really convenient.
Mm-hmm. And you're doing this again on Linux, on Windows, cross-platform. It runs everywhere. Yep. You do your primary development. Do you do it in Visual Studio Code? Are you like a Vim or Emacs person?
I'm a VS Code person still. So yeah, I haven't gotten the patience level to learn Vim or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So I still, I like VS Code a lot, and I use that. But yeah, the nice thing about C# and .NET is that you can kind of like, I think in our office, like I'm working on Linux, someone else is working on Mac, another person's working on Windows, and you kind of just going, and it's neat because you build stuff and have changes, and then the other person pulls them and it just works. There's no
This might be a dumb question, but I've always wanted to ask a game developer this, because I noticed as I'm starting to get like achievements in certain games that like the percentage is getting really low. So it's like I'm on Xbox and it's like 68% of people got this achievement. And now I'm deep into the game and it's like 0.3% of people. And it's like, I just finished some DLC for something and it was like low 1%. Yeah. So there's this feeling that I'm like, I'm really deep into this game. Like I'm many layers into Celeste. No one gets this deep. So here's the dumb question. How do you test that? Do you just become the world's best Celeste player because you're the writer, or do you just like change a bunch of variables and then teleport her to the end?
A bit of both. At some point, we definitely played through all of Celeste on our, we beat everything that you can do pretty much, except for this extra challenge at the end called Golden Strawberries. I don't think anyone on our team has done all of those. Definitely a few of them, yeah, but mostly not.
You know it's possible though? Like how do you...
We do know it's possible, yeah. There's been people on the internet who do it. But yeah, for those ones, that was a test of just like turning on invincible mode and dragging her around until she gets to the end and seeing that it completes successfully. But most things, yeah, at some point, I'm not anymore, but when it first came out, we were definitely all able to play through it and stuff. But it's a combination of like, we had a lot of play testers who would come and play through it, and then we would play through it a lot. I think by virtue of just making the game, you get pretty good at it, because I probably have 1,000 hours in the game or something just from sitting here working on it every day. You open, so you get pretty comfortable at it, I think. But yeah, there was some very specific stuff that was turn invincibility mode on, drag her around, and see that it actually performs the thing it's supposed to.
Mm-hmm. And you've got this other tool called, it looks like, I don't know how to pronounce this, Dear I Am GUI.
Yeah, so that means like I Am GUI is like immediate mode GUI. And so that one is a pretty popular tool in games in general. I've seen it, there's like debug screenshots of Pokemon games where they're using that same tool. So it's all over the place. But it's a really, really nice GUI system, because immediate mode GUI means you're not constructing like a model and then having stuff render or whatever. You're just, every frame it just runs through whatever you give it and presents that. And then the next frame, if you don't call it, or even an if statement that has stuff in it, if that if statement doesn't happen this next frame, it doesn't show it. So it's a really nice for like very simple, quick UI. Which is something you
I was
kind
thinking
of want.
I was thinking about the gameplay loop. Everyone talks about the gameplay loop. Is the gameplay loop fun? But I was imagining, what is the development loop for a game? So like whatever you're working on now, I presume that it would suck to make an edit to a map, hit Control-Shift-B, leave for 10 minutes, hit Control-F5. Now you're back in the thing, drag someone to the level. So can you be on a screen and move the screen around and then jump the guy around and then reset without having to recompile?
Yeah. So, yes. There's different layers of different things that we can do. So things
like hot
like
reload kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah. So things that are like level based, I would say, those are all in a tool that are just like a JSON file that's just serialized C#. And those you can just drag around. We have a little level editor set up, and you can just drag those around, save the level. It's working almost like a text editor or an image viewer, something where you can easily just kind of edit them and save them and run the game and stop. And that requires no rebuilding. But then when you get into more sort of specifics of like, oh, how fast does this object move, or what's the behavior of this thing, or that's when it gets into more you're editing actual code. And then you have to rebuild or hot reload. I mean, I use hot reload a lot now, which is really nice for game development, because you kind of have a combo of like, I'm editing rooms by just dragging, objects around. I hit save, and I'm like, I don't like how this thing moved, so I'll just tweak that, and then it instantly pretty much loads that in, and then I can test that. So at this point, I can often go like, half an hour without having to rebuild the game at all. I'm just letting it run and editing data files and stuff, and then the code I tweak can usually just reload, and yeah, it's very fast. And even C#, like a full rebuild of C# is at a few seconds. So compared to my C# days, or C++, work, it's very smooth.
That's awesome. Are you currently is there something you're working on right now that you can tell us about, or is it still secret?
Yeah, I'm working on 2 games. I'm working on a game with XOK. That's more in a prototype phase that we haven't really publicly posted about yet, but we'll at some point soon. And then I have another game I'm working on with my brother called City of None. And that's further along, and we have a website for it. We don't have a trailer out yet, but we should soon. But yeah,
City of None has the color scheme. It's kind of limited. And I'm trying to figure out, is it trying to be Super Nintendo or Nintendo NES, adjacent? And what's the style there?
So it's kind of inspired by that stuff for sure. But the main reason is I wanted a limited art style, because it's the game me and my brother are working on for fun, and it's neither of us like. We do a lot of pixel art, and we do a lot of art in our time, but I don't consider myself like an amazing artist by any means. I have fun with it. So the intention there was to do an art style that I thought was limited so that we could still make it look good. But it's almost like I'm trying to think of the word, like a scope decision of just like, or a limitation decision.
No, it's constraints, right? That's where creativity happens.
Exactly. So the constraint of that makes it so that we can kind of push the art in fun directions and do really interesting things with it. But yeah, the constraint of like, well, there's only 4 colors, so we have to work within this space. And it creates fun stuff out of that, which I like a lot.
What I think is fun about it is not just that there's only 4 colors. The thing that's interesting is that there's 4 colors, but it's not always the same 4 colors. So like if someone gets hit, the colors change and there's a bloom or there's a filter, but you're still constrained even in those moments. So you're not jumping out of the palette, which I thought was an interesting choice.
Yeah, so that's where it deviates from an actual like Game Boy Color game or NES game or something like that, where we do a lot of dynamic weird stuff that you would not be able to do in a normal, old console.
Yeah, and the background's moving too. Like the idle animation of the background as well is extraordinary.
Yep. We have particles and all sorts of, and we have lighting and all sorts of things that, definitely do not exist without a modern GPU, but we constrain it all down to the 4 colors, which makes interesting effects, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you're having fun, I think, is the most important part of all of this.
Totally. Yeah. That's kind of where I've come back to a lot with game stuff, is just like, I've enjoyed doing this since I was, a teenager, and it's just fun to work on stuff. So I just want to keep hopefully doing that for as long as I can.
So folks can check out everything that you're working on at noelberry.ca, and they can also explore Extremely OK Games, exok.com, and I'm looking right now at cityofnone.com, and where you can sign up for your Substack and learn about when that's going to come out. And I assume with all of these things, the answer is it'll come out when it's done.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Noel Berry, for hanging out with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I had a lot of fun.
This has been another episode of Hanselminutes, and we'll see you again next week.